How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Reel Night. Here we are at the RNR for Season 4, and I have to say, this season definitely took me for a ride. For me, the start of this season was a bit rocky, but ended up eroding into something that kept me engaged and brought me close to shedding a tear, which, for me, is pretty rare. We kick things off with Dexter's hectic experience as a new parent, losing sleep and trying to juggle all the different aspects of his life, literally asking himself,
can I do it? Can I have it all?
As the season continued, we were introduced to Arthur Mitchell, a seeming victim of his own dark passenger, a person who had found a way to live a successful normal life over the long term alongside his monster, or so I thought. I was fooled, like Dexter, into thinking that there were many lessons that Arthur could teach him. As Dexter was coming to realizations like,
I'd rather risk them knowing the truth than lose them.
I thought the answer to his question was clear, but the deeper we got, the more his words did not truly match his actions. And by the time the veil concealing Arthur's true character was lifted, and Dexter, driven by selfishness and pride, let one opportunity after another to seal Arthur's fate slip through his fingers, Trinity taught him the ultimate lesson, and in the process, answered the question he posed himself 11 episodes prior. And the answer was a resounding no. Excited to hop into this one. We have our previous prediction review, we have a character tier list, and for the first time for a Dexter RNR, we have a reaction. Finished off with my predictions for the next season, so let's hop into it. With Deb on Harry's trail, it's really only a matter of time before she finds out a bunch of stuff. It'll probably lead to a bit of fallout between them. Tensions did mount between Deb and Dexter as she continued to investigate Harry's CIs. However, instead of leading to fallout, it led to a deeper bond between them. Rita's first husband might be something that comes back up. Didn't happen, and with the way that things were left off, I'm pretty sure it's not going to. We're probably going to learn some more about Quinn next season. I still think he's a dirty cop, but hey, who knows? I could be wrong. Yeah, we got some more Quinn, but not necessarily in depth into his character, more his relationship with Christine was one of the focal points of the main story. There is probably going to be some trouble in paradise between Rita and Dexter, just judging by the symbolism of the blood on the wedding dress. We definitely got some instability in their relationship, Rita wanting Dexter to open up more, the situation with Elliot happening. However, as Bree Kellogg actually pointed out, the stain on the wedding dress sort of foreshadowed what happened to Rita at the end of this season. That was really something that I hadn't thought about or put together myself at the time. Honestly, looking back at some of these is kind of sad, because I was still under the impression that Rita was going to be around for the entirety of their show, or at least for most of the show, and I never would have expected her to meet the violent end that she did. Before we begin the actual tier list, of course, we have our honorable mentions. Starting out with Anton, he handled the situation with Deb extremely well. Even after he found out about her and Lundy, he still offered to sort of stay by her side or help her through it, not requiring her to move out immediately. In that scenario, I think he deserved a lot better than Deb, and I gotta give him an A. Frank Lundy, they brought him back to sort of initiate everything that started with this season, both with the Trinity Killer and with Deb. I wasn't really a huge fan of what happened with Deb and him, and I think I'm going to just remember Lundy as he was in season 2, so I had to give him a C this time around. Finally, we have DC Matthews. I didn't really agree with what he was doing with Angel and Maria, just trying everything he could to split them up or make their lives harder. I get where he's coming from in a workplace dynamic perspective, and I understand the hate for Maria, although she has been getting better as the seasons have gone on. I mainly gave him a B just because of his willingness to tell the truth to the Morgans, specifically when Deb came to him this season. Now on to the main list, of course, starting with Angel. Angel stayed relatively low-key this season, especially in comparison to everything else that happened. However, we did get the culmination of his character arc, or at least one of his main goals, in that he wants to find somebody to share a connection with. He has consistently been one to let La Pasión lead his decisions.
La Pasión. Yeah, it keeps the relationship alive.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
As far as love goes, but in this case, it culminated in something more substantial and perhaps long-lasting, even if it was rushed in this circumstance. Vince Masuka. Vince was actually a little bit more prevalent this season. He was still that sort of dirty wisecracker that we've known throughout these past 4 seasons.
A river of chocolate love that melts in your mouth.
Wow.
But this time around, they actually gave him a somewhat heavy story element to contend with in episode 9 with the Thanksgiving and having witnessed what Rita was doing. I'm hoping they continue to give his characters some more, heavy-hitting stuff rather than just the light stuff, but he is sort of the comedic value, so I can understand. Harry Morgan. Harry's reputation continues to suffer as each season progresses, specifically in this case being brought to light by Deb's investigation into his CIs.
I think he picked his CIs based on how good we were in the sack.
I am disgusted.
But it wasn't too much of a surprise this time around because, if he's done it once...
That doesn't sound like Harry. Thank you, Dex.
It's not too surprising if he does it again, and to sort of paraphrase what Dexter said, he was who he was, the good and the bad, and there's nothing really that can be done about it now. Maria LaGuerta. She and Angel's stories were pretty much entirely connected this season, fittingly. The main arc for her this time around being the fight with DC Matthews to continue the relationship with Angel. She kind of fell back on some of those political games that she was playing earlier in the seasons, but also showed a little bit of growth in that she was willing to sacrifice her job for another one just so that she could continue the relationship with Angel, although Angel didn't really want that, so that wasn't the route that they took. Her relationship with Deb has also shown a lot of growth in this season, so all in all, it was a pretty good season for her, I would say. Joseph Quinn.
Can you believe he's here?
Who is he?
That's Quinn.
This season started out very rocky for Quinn in my book, as I made quite obvious in those early reactions. However, as the season went on, he began to make more and more good moves.
That's my dog, show my dog, that's my dog.
Moves that felt more genuine rather than just plays to gain something, Specifically in the partner relationship that he has been growing with Deb, sort of being there for her when she needed him. While he would have stayed a C, they sort of brought me around to him a little bit, so he ended up on B. Christine Hill.
Oh, God!
From their first interaction, I was very wary that she was going to be playing Quinn. Didn't really care too much about it because, again, it was Quinn, but I had no clue of her motivations and how connected she was to the whole thing until they revealed it in the show. Courtney Ford did an excellent job of portraying the emotional turmoil of the character, as well as the subtle manipulations that Christine was so good at. I'd also like to quickly highlight this comment by Jonathan Gonzalez, sort of speaking on the depth of the scene between Deb and Christine in her final moments, and the potential that was there for her to survive and heal from everything. If Deb had forgiven her. And as I responded, yes, I do have to agree with that. In a little bit of a messed up way, when Deb sort of spat in her face, understandably, Christine gave out sort of a sigh of relief, kind of like a resignation to what she was going to do, now having that confirmation that Deb wasn't going to forgive her. I think if that forgiveness was present, she likely could have been helped, healed from that situation, maybe even become a major part of the show, or a recurring side character, sort of a growth factor for Deb. But Deb did show a lot of progression in that moment as well for not just attacking her like she attacked the Skinner. Ultimately, I think she contributed a lot to the overall drama of the season. Deborah Morgan. Again, another character that started off rough in my book this season, especially in regards to Lundy. I wanted to see a lot more growth for her in that department, but it didn't really happen here. I get why the writers did what they did, sort of building the drama, building the stakes for Deb in that scenario, but I wish they would have just given her that mature choice to break up with Anton before she moved forward with Lundy. However, she stayed true to form with her tenacity to solve the case, both with Trinity and with Harry, but again ultimately got led astray by Dexter, who is always trying to affect these cases in some way to save his own skin. As we brought the season to a close, she'd grown in her ability to let go of the past, so while she didn't end up an S like she did last season, she ended up on an A. Arthur Mitchell, the most nuanced antagonist that we've gotten so far in the show, by far. My perception of him did a complete 180 as the season progressed, and more was revealed about him. He was a very well-written character, in my opinion, presenting perfectly what someone who had been doing this for so many years would act like and be like.
No one said they were thankful for me.
Get you, Jonah?
This, coupled with John Lithgow's excellent performance, served to create a very compelling and sinister force that, for the first time in the show pretty much, left an indelible mark on Dexter, his life, and the show as a whole.
Make my wish come true.
Which brings me to his final victim. I don't want to repeat myself too much from the closing thoughts of the last episode, but as you all know, I really loved Rita from the start. Her character growth and her presence within Dexter's life and the show remained relatively consistent throughout these past 4 seasons. She went from emotionally damaged with little to no self-confidence just due to everything that she had experienced in life, to someone who was for the most part decisive and able to speak her mind unabashedly. This growth was brought on by her own internal decisions to improve and further cemented, sometimes, by the support of Dexter. I do believe he was good for her in that sense, but ultimately, he was what led to her demise. Also, on many occasions in this show, just taking a look at the music and seeing how they draw parallels in that sense is very interesting as well. The theme that's playing as Dexter's coming home to what he thinks is an empty house is the same theme that was playing when we were getting Astor's birthday party in the first season. And I went back and watched that scene, and what Dexter says,
I realize now my days are numbered, so I better make the most of them.
while he wasn't talking about Rita in that case, his days were definitely numbered. I don't think a moment in the show has ever really made me think about the fragility or the shortness of life, which is surprising for a show that's sort of centered around death, but I don't think any scene has made me think about that more than the final scenes with Rita. And after all she'd gone through and the growth that she'd achieved, I'd have to agree with a lot of you in the comments in that she deserved a lot better. I will definitely miss her a lot. Dexter Morgan.
I'm thankful for yams.
There's a lot to unpack about Dexter in this season, be it his actions and his words sort of mismatching, the selfish need to kill Trinity himself.
No, you're mine.
In many moments throughout this season, he continually brings up his family, be it with Harry or alone moments, and of course brought on by the fact that he is a new father. It makes it a lot more personal for him. That was even the primary reason why he approached Trinity in the first place and wanted to learn from him, because he thought that there was something to be learned. Things could have gone a completely different direction if he had just let fate take its course. He was already doing so well, he just didn't even know it, or he had some strange sort of insecurity about it. Don't get me wrong, it was definitely rough at the start. He was going through it. At the end, he said he wanted to be better than Arthur, but he already was without even knowing it. And pursuing that perfection is what ultimately led him to be worse than Arthur. Dexter has been blessed his entire life with the people that surround him, from Harry to Deb to, of course, Rita. But because of his hubris and constant need to stray from Harry's path and Harry's code, he has taken multiple innocent lives, be it by his own hand or, in this situation with Rita, just proximity. It's something that has been present throughout all the seasons so far, but it came to a head in this season and ended one of the best characters in the show. All these factors sort of converging in this scenario in this season. For the first time, Dexter's not going to land on an S, he's going to land on an A. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Always love reading them. Speaking of which, we are going to be reacting to a video recommended by Janet D. Sort of a conversation between John Lithgow and Michael C. Hall here. So let's roll it. I'll also include the link down below if you guys want to watch this for yourselves, because I'm probably going to cut it up a little bit.
The very ending, Trinity's handiwork with Dexter's wife, my first response was, oh my God, what an ending.
Yeah, such a hard moment, really.
My first thought about the ending was about Julie, and just wrapping my head around the idea of Dexter without her. I did think it was a really bold stroke in terms of resetting the stage for what's to come, whatever that may be. So from a storytelling standpoint, as far as the future goes, it's exciting. I think more than anything, I was horrified, and I felt for the audience. I mean, I think that this is the kind of thing that's really going to tie people in knots.
There's probably two stances to be taken in this scenario with stuff like this. It's, The writers are taking a risk here, and that's a good thing, I think. Some might be in the camp of it was a great way to, continue on the story and provide some actual consequences for Dexter. And others might be in the camp of, it's completely a horrible thing that they did there. Why did they do that? And I think I'm while I love Rita, don't get me wrong, I've expressed that multiple times. It should be clear by now, but I do like that they took that risk with the writing and, provided those consequences for what Dexter was doing this season.
This is the final episode, so people are going to, along with us, are going to have to wait to find out what's in store.
It's also really weird to see him without hair.
Thank goodness Showtime and the producers and the writers, they wanted to withhold absolutely everything from everybody who might conceivably be watching Dexter. Mm-hmm. So they really loved the idea.
They did a good job with that this season, especially with Christine and, of course, the hidden mask of Arthur.
Rita's character would die at the end, but we didn't find out how.
There were no specific pages until maybe a couple of days before we shot, and those pages were made available just for, I think, the actors in the scene.
Yeah.
Kind of like a similar situation to Star Wars, with Darth Vader's reveal.
Very hush-hush. There was a false ending written in the final episode.
I think they do that quite a bit in shows, though. Definitely helps the actors,
I mean, if you're going to lose a major character and a major actress from a series, don't let a crisis go to waste.
Right.
Give her a fantastic exit, make a huge impact.
Every time I think about it, it's really hard to come to terms with. Thinking that when I start next season, she's not going to be there.
The killing scene, it almost ends on a sympathetic note. What appears to be a kindness on Trinity's part, all this sage advice to almost a child, that's such a misleading moment.
I have a family too, Arthur.
Yeah, but looking back, you can see those little micro expressions and moments in the conversation where he was kind of telling him,
what happened in that room, what was being communicated when I thought something else was being communicated. I don't know what kind of doors this is going to open or shut for Dexter, but this will result in some sort of, I think, fundamental change.
Yeah. Dexter more emotionally expressive than he's ever been, and that's all a result of the enormity of Trinity's evil. He's so much worse than Dexter. He even appalls another serial killer. My most appalling scene is the very first.
I would say that the first scene was probably the most striking scene, for sure. It was a great character introduction for the type of guy he is. I wouldn't necessarily say it was appalling. It was more surprising, and for me, it sort of highlighted the kind of killer that he was, because it wasn't a necessarily super violent death. It felt intimate in a way. It felt very creepy. Dang, man, this is crazy weird. So I wouldn't say that I was appalled in that sense, but I think it set up his character very well for the type of guy that he is. And even appalling another serial killer. I think there's an argument to be made for Dexter sort of being worse than Trinity. Yes, Trinity's very prolific and he's done horrendous things. There's no denying that. They're both horrible people. But Dexter knew those things. And even with that knowledge, still allowed Trinity to go on, simply fueled by the fact that he wanted to be better. He wanted to learn something from him. He thought that there was something that he could gain from doing that.
Trinity is a completely two-faced man. He appears to be so good and so nice and so kind. By the same extreme, he's completely despicable. And they found an actor who's known to be a kind of silly, nice guy. And just, it just knocks all your pins out.
Yeah, it's a striking scene for real.
And every episode is over, my wife turns from the screen and looks at me like, who are you?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be weird to be married to an actor, but in that case, your significant other do a lot of stuff.
I experienced, in playing the scenes with you, a simultaneous reverence and disgust.
Describes our relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a stretch. John Lithgow.
Trinity's pattern is so rigid and performed almost to perfection. and suddenly he's killing Rita out of pure vengeance. Dexter has thrown him way off his game. And I think the same thing has happened to Dexter.
You know, Dexter gives himself excuses about why he lets Trinity survive, but I think ultimately he really craves, covert though it may be, the sense of connection he has with this man.
Well, you're really seeking something from your victim, as you...
Yeah, I think he and Deb are very missing, their father figure. Because Harry was such a impact on them, both of them.
Some sort of confirmation that he's different from you. Mm-hmm. Or that there's a possibility to take another step in terms of the way he can live his life. But he's in way over his head.
Taking that 30 years into account is something he really should have done.
Flings Trinity down on the floor of the kitchen and says, I should have killed you when I had the chance. He just looks into Dexter's eyes and he knows everything about him. Mm-hmm. And suddenly Trinity is terrified of Dexter. Because there was a Michael Hall that I had not seen before, too. Just sort of roaring out of the box.
Thanksgiving ever.
Yeah.
I don't know why they have them in kindergarten chairs. I feel like those are pretty uncomfortable to sit in.
We did a lot of this.
Yeah, we were laughing all day long. Can you believe that?
Embrace my family.
On the surface of it, before...
I feel like there were some notes in there, too, in the music in the final scene that kind of made it more suspenseful. I think that's what I was picking up on subconsciously and why I felt the way that I did.
It just has to be lived.
Dexter learns from Trinity that he has an aspiration to be better than the cover, that he can actually live in accordance to what he experiences to be a connection to people who care about him and need him. What he ultimately learns from Trinity, not this is God's work, but is his fate. Roll with that, or embrace it, or surrender to it.
Should have surrendered to it earlier, allowing Arthur to take his own life.
What he's done is he's left Dexter with exactly the scenario that began Dexter's life.
Undoubtedly, Dexter is permanently changed going forward because of what Trinity has done.
Again, for the first time in the show.
And I think for the first time, Dexter will be saddled with this appetite for vengeance that can't be sated. Perhaps he'll slam shut every door he's opened in terms of his vulnerable, emotional human self. Maybe not. It's hard to say definitive.
I wrote these predictions before I watched this, so that kind of brings to mind one of them, specifically the last one, but we'll get to that when it's time.
And how it will change, but to step into something where so much change is afoot when you've been doing it for 4 seasons is a real gift.
What do we do next, Michael?
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer.
It's been fabulous working with you.
Likewise.
I'm certainly glad I'm not writing next season. All I know for sure is that I'll be watching.
Appreciate the suggestion. It was a great video. It's cool to see their interactions outside of the show. Sort of very friendly, although both of them seemed a little bit kind of nervous. They worked together so much probably over the filming of the show that they probably wouldn't be nervous around each other. Maybe it's just the environment that they're in, being in that interview together, sort of talking this out. Maybe there was some other stuff going on. Maybe it was those kindergarten chairs that they had them in. I don't know. It's cool to get that sort of friendly vibe between them, laughing in between takes while they're filming that immensely suspenseful and impactful Thanksgiving scene.
I should have fucking killed you when I had the chance.
Having Michael C. Hall say one of my predictions pretty much, it's very cementing in my own mindset on the show. So I guess without further ado, let's hop into those. I think dealing with the fallout of Rita's death is going to be a major theme coming up next season. Dexter sort of tackling being a single parent and what that might mean, having to deal with even more stress now that he doesn't have a partner to share the load with, With that being said, I think there's going to be a bit of a contrast in that case with Deb and Dexter from my prediction last time, in that I don't think that they're going to be driven further apart. I think that this is going to bring them closer together. Deb might be an aid to Dexter in this case, sort of helping him out when he needs it. And finally, I think we're going to get one of two sides of the coin here. Either a remorseful Dexter who's trying his best not to let his dark passenger take control and take the lead, Instead, maybe a restrained Dexter just trying to live that normal life because of what happened this season, what pursuing that and letting the Dark Passenger take control led to. Or we could get a very vengeful Dexter in that he wants to just let the Dark Passenger take control and take out all the aggression that he might feel in this scenario, all the sorrow that he's feeling, if he's feeling anything, because we know that that's an issue for him. Take all that out on victims. I think it could either be one of the two. Again, this was a very good season. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment down below. Also, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss season 5 when we start that up. And I will see you all in season 5.